Hello, thank you all for joining the second episode of the President's Interview Series, Talking COVID-19, Vaccine Cooperation with President John Rim. I'm Tom Byrne, the President and CEO of the Korea Society, located in New York City. Today, I'm very pleased to visit Samsung Biologics in Songdo, Incheon, to meet President John Rim. Mr. Rim will be telling us about his career, about Samsung Biologics, about market trends in the biopharma industry, and the role of Samsung Biologics is playing in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. He will also speak about the company's recent agreement with U.S. biotech firm Moderna to fill finish manufacturing of Moderna's path-breaking messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccine. A graduate of Columbia and Stanford universities and the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, President Rim's exceptional career encompasses over 30 years of experience serving in senior leadership roles in bio and pharma companies in the US, Europe, Asia Pacific, and South America. President Rim joined Samsung Biologics in 2018 and has played a key role in facilitating the growth of Samsung Biologics into one of the world's largest contract development and manufacturing organizations. After being appointed the president and CEO in 2020, President Rim continued to drive Samsung Biologics into a globally acknowledged company that holds the world's largest biomanufacturing capacity at a single site. President Rim, I'm very pleased to meet you in person, and I can't wait to hear about your professional experiences, insights, and perspectives.
Great. Thank you for making the time. Really appreciate the interview and look forward to our dialogue.
Okay, good. So why don't we start? So Chairman Rim, please tell us about yourself. How did you progress from degrees in chemical engineering at Columbia and Stanford universities to marketing at Northwestern School of Management, and from there to the biopharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, so I started a chemical engineering degree just because it really provided a solid foundation for sciences and math, and I was good at it. But I found that it's a little bit stifling in terms of making sure that math and science tends to be an exact science, and you don't have ambiguity, and you don't have shades of gray. But most importantly, what I found that you only have one exact answer. You either have it right or you have it wrong. So going into business enabled me to really think much more broadly about dimensions about business, dimensions about not only looking at just the business aspect, but changes quickly and having the agility, as well as thinking about risk dimensions that you don't do in a science area. So that really opened up the whole new area for me. And so that's why I gravitated into business and looking at a business from a whole dimension, particularly around people as well, because that's a very, very important part in business. And I think that's one of the most important aspects that I really like and have fun at, which is looking at people and helping to develop people for our organization.
So did you figure this all out by yourself, where you wanted your career to head, or were there any mentors who influenced your decision making?
Yeah, so I mean, I had really a great opportunity, and some of it was sort of not figuring it out since I didn't know the path, but as soon as I got to business school, I joined a consulting firm right out of business school to get a broader perspective about what really business was, since I didn't have a lot of practical business experience prior to going to business school. So when I was doing consulting, I learned about organization, I learned about integration, I learned about pricing, I learned about various dimensions that I learned academically while in school, but not from a practical perspective. And that working at Booz and Company really gave me that perspective. So I had some great mentors in consulting who really taught me that. Then I joined a pharmaceutical company, Yamanouchi, which then became Astellas, where I learned about long-term thinking. The chairman at that time was approximately 70 years old, and he talked about a 30-year vision for the company, which was just wow. I mean, you know, most American companies thought about quarterly profitability and quarterly performance, and he was talking about a 30-year vision for the company and what he wanted the company to look like. So that really talked to me about, okay, as a leader, you need to think about the long-term vision and long-term outlook for the business and what you need to do to make that happen.
Yeah.
Then I had the great opportunity to work for a biotech leader, Genentech, where I got to experience lots of dimensions in terms of manufacturing, in terms of late-stage development, research and development, and procurement. But one of the things that was really fantastic was I really learned about what the company really wanted to focus on, which was put the patients first,
Right.
Science in terms of the importance of science and striving to be innovative, and then people in terms of our employees.
Right.
So those are the things that I learned from working at Genentech and Roche for 14 years. And particularly just had great mentors in terms of leadership development and leadership of organizations through Pat Yang.
Right.
And then I had the great opportunity to work at Samsung and worked under Chairman TH. And from him, I learned about perseverance and passion. And that, I think, there's a recent book called Grit that really talked about that and what really makes companies successful and what person's successful. And that's what I learned. So really great mentors who've helped me throughout my career as well.
Right, right. Well, that 30-year horizon is an exceptional lookout. And I think it's a lot harder to do it these days because things, I think, change a lot more quickly and a lot more unpredictable. But anyway, that's really amazing. So what prompted you to make the move from a U.S. biotech company to Samsung Biologics in 2018?
Yeah, so, for me, it was a fantastic and lifetime opportunity to join Samsung because I saw it as an opportunity not only to make a contribution to Samsung, but also a contribution to Korea. I was born in Korea as a Korean American. My father was a Korean diplomat, and I saw it as an opportunity to help Samsung really think about the next future growth. Job creation beyond Samsung Electronics, but looking at how Samsung can lead in the biotechnology area, which is a relatively new to Korea, but of course it's been around in the United States for 40 years, but in terms of the biotech industry in Korea is relatively new. And also I saw it as an opportunity to contribute to Korea in terms of job creation, in terms of technology development, but also a whole new development of an industry from scratch in a relatively short period of time. So that really excited me to come to Samsung and Korea as well.
So I guess that factors into the passion factor.
Yes.
And the equation of passion and perseverance. That you're doing something that's bigger than yourself. Of course, you benefit working here personally, but you're working for a greater cause, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very noble. Can you tell our audience more about Samsung Biologics, for example? How did the company get started in 2011? So
Samsung Biologics has a very, very short career and start. It started in 2011. Samsung Group wanted to take a look at where's the future growth opportunity. Samsung Group overall looked at where is the potential area and identified biotechnology and bio as a future growth opportunity for a variety of reasons. But I think particularly they were looking at some of the demographic factors like an aging population, technology getting much more developed over time, the income growing, also therapeutic areas expanding. So looking at all of those factors and looking at some of the Samsung DNA of excellence in manufacturing, excellence in terms of quality, excellence in terms of building massive facilities in a very, very short time with clean room technology, I think really said, okay, we need to leverage our capability and focus on biotechnology. So Samsung Biologics started in 2011 with basically about 100 people in Songdo here. This is mud flat, so it was basically landfill. So there was very little infrastructure in Songdo, but the government was very, very supportive in terms of the Incheon Free Economic Zone, enabled us to really start the business here. And over the last several years, we've grown to be the #1 CDMO company in terms of capacity in the world. There are several other competitors in the marketplace that have been around for probably 100+ years, but we've actually surpassed them in terms of capacity now.
Right. So I've come to, you're here in Songdo by Incheon, and it's a pretty spacious place. It's not crowded and congested and full of mountains like the rest of Korea. But your story, your origin evolution reminds me of the POSCO story. Yeah. How POSCO and Pohang started from basically mud flats too, but on the other coast, on the East Coast, and with the vision of then President Park Chung-hee and the chairman of POSCO, they took this long-term strategic view, and they developed comparative advantage in those industries. So Korea is one of the leading steel producers in the world, and likewise, you're doing the same thing on this side of the peninsula, but in a completely a new industry that probably no one knew what a biosimilar and a biologic was back in the mid 1970s.
It was very, very relatively new in Korea, and Samsung Biologics is with great people and great folks have actually built a company, and we're now close to we'll have almost 4,000 people this year. We started out with less than 100. 2011.
That's remarkable achievement. Getting into some of the nitty gritty. So Samsung Biologics is one of the largest CMO companies globally. But what is a CMO and what is a CDMO? So we'll start with that.
Okay. So in a nutshell, if you think about business value systems and in the biopharma industry, you can kind of segment the value system into multiple chunks. The first part is really discovery, research and development, followed by really manufacturing, and lastly sales and marketing in terms of the business value systems in the pharma side. CDMO, contract development manufacturing organization, we are targeting the two segments, so the development focused area and also the manufacturing of the biologics. Samsung Biologics is primarily in biologics manufacturing, and I would differentiate that from small molecules manufacturing, which are much more chemical synthesis of products. Biologic products are actually produced through living cells, and we do that in fermenters. At Samsung Biologics, we use 1K, 5,000 liters, 10,000 liter, and 15,000 liter fermenters. And that's what's used to produce biologic products. We currently have 3 facilities online already, close to 360,000 liters. We will have the 4th plant coming online with an additional 200,000 plus for a total of 620,000 liters, which will give us almost 30% of the global capacity in this area. We're also expanding further in terms of our capabilities and capacity. We'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of our mRNA capability, but we're also looking to expand further in terms of platform as well into multimodal as well as gene therapy side.
Could you give us an example of one of the biological products that you're producing?
So we're actually much more focused around patients. And while we serve our clients, our clients are producing drug products that go to critical ill patients. So for biologics, we actually produce products or critical medicines for patients in oncology, in HIV. We've produced quite a few products in the COVID therapy market recently with the COVID-19 area. We also produce products in immunology. So in terms of, if you think about biologics and what we're producing for patients, we actually cover the whole gamut in terms of the therapeutic area. We're also very excited about the recent approval of the aducanumab by Biogen in terms of the neuro side, in terms of Alzheimer's disease. So we see that as another growth that's going to happen for the industry as well, because that's a biologic product as well.
Okay, so that's a biologic, right?
Yes.
That's really expensive now, right?
Well, it's I would say it's cost effective.
It's cost effective,
but I won't comment on
well,
that.
I mean, let's say from my perspective, or from a political or whatever some critics say. But tying that in, so there's biologics, and then there's something called a biosimilar.
Yes.
Now, biosimilars are like a genetic a generic version of a
Yeah, it's an easy
drug?
way to think about. I think in the chemical side, you have generics. So
Right.
to a large extent, I think most people are very familiar with. You go to a pharmacy. Some people say, okay, this is a branded product. The copycat version of it is a generic product.
Right.
Think about simply in terms of the biologic side. On the biologic, this is a biosimilar product of a biological medicine. But in terms of if you use a chemical analogy, it's sort of like a generic product. But the volume, for example, the molecular weight of a biologic is much more complex than a chemical synthesis or small molecule. So that's why we call it biosimilar, because it's not exactly 100%, because these are large molecules.
Right. So an advantage, at least from the consumer side, is that a biosimilar tends to be cheaper than a biological product?
Generally, they tend to be cheaper in terms of the pricing. It's also, we have a joint venture with Biogen, which is owned basically 50% plus minus one share. We own that, and Biogen means 50% minus one share. We have 5 products that are sold in Europe as well as the United States, primarily in the oncology side and the immunology side, and we have a large portfolio of products as well in development.
Right. So you're also manufacturing biosimilars in your plant?
Yes, we also produce biosimilar as well.
Okay, right. So taking an overview now, what are the market trends in the biopharmaceutical industry?
So the biopharmaceutical industry really started probably in the 1970s or so with Genentech and some of the other pharma companies in the United States. Over this period of time, the market has grown significantly, particularly probably recently it's growing at double-digit growth rate. And part of that is because demographics are aging. Everybody's getting older. They're living longer. The income rates have gone up, not only in the United States, but the rest of the world, like China. All of the incomes have gone up. The technology has really developed quite rapidly. So the genomic side, maybe 10 years ago, it would have been unheard of to be able to look at the whole genome side. Now you can for $100 or $200. So those things have really accelerated the biologic market growth rate to double digits. I think with now the neuro side coming to open to the market with the aducanumab and the Alzheimer area, that is going to further accelerate. So we've seen biologics really grow significantly in the oncology side. Probably 20 years ago, I mean, there were very few oncology products. Now there's a huge oncology product that's targeting to cure or at least delay cancer. We now have Alzheimer and probably other areas that are huge unmet medical need in terms of neuro side, like ALS or Huntington's or Parkinson's, et cetera, and cancer. I mean, we're trying to at some point cure cancer, but cancer is a chronic disease, but not a cured disease yet.
So economy-wide, or an aging population, the demographics present either a lack of a tailwind or else a headwind on economic activity as the working age population shrinks and the dependency ratios increase. But for you, this crisis elsewhere is an opportunity. So you're in a very good spot, I would say.
Yeah. So I think business is always Samsung looks at business in 2 ways. It's either an opportunity or a risk or a threat. And I think to a large extent, we always look at it from that perspective within the Samsung Group. We can try to make a threat into an opportunity. And I think for COVID-19, it has impacted many of the industries negatively. For us, we've actually leveraged that opportunity and really use that as a growth driver for us. And what I mean by that is, as soon as COVID-19 pandemic occurred, we really focused around making sure that our supply chain and raw material was robust. So we actually put a war room together on the supply chain management side to ensure that we have adequate raw materials available, to ensure that our production and plants are running fully. We also moved toward making sure that we had systems that are to the top level so that we can do audits and inspection visits virtually through some of our technology side. And we've also operated our plants 365 days, 24/7 without a glitch, because we have strict protocols and business continuity management system like 22301 that enable us to really manage through the COVID pandemic without a hitch. Now, we've had some challenges, of course. As you know, pandemic, while Korea has managed that really well, we've had opportunities where there are some issues around, cases. But we worked through those very, very well and have no impact to our clients. And more importantly, getting products to patients, which is critical.
So President Rim, in October 2018, Samsung Biologics opened its third biologics manufacturing plant here in Songdo. And the plant made Samsung Group one of the world's largest biological contract manufacturing CMOs.
Yes.
2 years later, you're in the process of constructing and opening your fourth plant that includes bioreactors, or maybe it just totally consists of bioreactors.
Yes.
And as you said before, once this is done, you'll be a dominant player in the global market, right? Or a leading player.
So we're already, I think, one of the strongest in terms of our biologics manufacturing capability. We've been able to do that leveraging our core strengths. And I think one of the things that I'm proud of is we have great people. But people actually translate into a fantastic execution. So I think second to none. There's probably no other company in the globe, not even CDMO, but biopharma companies, that's been able to basically construct and operate and have GMP ready in 10 years, 4 plants. We can do that, and we have done that. So we've been able to actually build facilities within a 2.5 year to 3 year period very, very rapidly. So we have the speed, flexibility, quality, that is really our critical competitive advantage versus our competitors. And so we've been able to do that, and we're continuing our expansion going into the next decade.
Yeah, I think that seems to be part of the whole Samsung family DNA, because I was over just with members of Congress last week to Samsung Semiconductor, and they're also building stuff really quickly. There's an urgency there to get because of the shortage in chips and things like that. So it's part of the Samsung DNA, I would say.
So the shortage in chips is important, but I mean, what I think in our employees feel is that this is critical, because this is medicines for patients that ultimately we provide for our clients. And without these aren't just medicines like aspirin. These are critical medicines like for oncology, for cancer patients, for HIV patients, COVID therapy. If you don't have it, it has detrimental effect. So our employees are really focused on making sure that there is no impact. We deliver on time, and we do that very, very quickly.
Right. So, so we mentioned you're constructing plant number 4. Your plant number 3 is up and running. You had plant number 2, plant number 1. Why did you choose to expand here? Was there any? Did you take a look to see whether it'd be like more economical to expand in another country or another location, either in Asia or Europe or the U.S.? Yeah,
so we're always looking at that, and I think there are probably 3 dimensions that we're looking at. I think the strategy that we've talked about is how do we expand capacity? So the first dimension is expanding capacity. The second dimension is platform. So we've continued to expand on our platform. So we have biologics. We've now gone into mRNA with Moderna. We want to go into multimodal and cell and gene therapy. From a geographic perspective, all of our plants are located in Songdo right now, but we're looking at other geographies. We've actually opened our first CDO office in South San Francisco, which is the hub of biotechnology. So we have expanded internationally as well. For Incheon and Songdo, we actually leverage the ecosystem. So we now have the critical mass here. There's a huge support from the government in terms of the Incheon, as well as IFAS, as well as Korea, in terms of the building the K-Bio infrastructure and K-Bio business. So that's been very supportive. We also have the workforce in Incheon as well. We have the education facility, academic facility, the transportation infrastructure. And we're also seeing is that a lot of our suppliers, just because we've now have critical mass, have built warehousing and operation here as well at the same time. So Saint-Gobain, which is a French company, or Cytiva, or many other thermoelectronics, they've all established supply chain organizations here in Songdo, not just for Korea, but also for Asia overall. So that's been really helpful, and that's one of the reasons that we continue to expand here as well, leveraging the infrastructure, the people, and the cost structure.
Right. One thing I learned here is now we have another member of the K family. You know, we've had K-pop and K-drama, and K-cinema, and now we have K-bio.
Yes, K-bio. And K-bio, I think the government has really focused around building that infrastructure. And recently, pleased to hear that Incheon Songdo has been selected as the K Lab Hub. So $250 million will be actually funded for this area to further grow research and development, and similarly to sort of the Boston model in terms of having smaller firms focus around research and development, leveraging the infrastructure. And this is a great place because you've got discovery, you've got the resources and people, you've got the education facility, and you have the production facility and the capabilities through Samsung Biologics. Right.
So just to wrap up on why you choose to expand and operate out of Songdo. Songdo is a great location, right? It's near the Incheon airport. And as you said before, now there's backward linkages with suppliers in the same industry here in Songdo. But what about the Incheon Free Economic Zone? Are there any like special incentives that attract companies to make these huge investments here?
Incheon has been focused around growing this area for a while now. So it's at least 10 plus years. The former the mayor, the current mayor, as well as the IFES facility have really focused on how do we continue to foster growth and ultimately not only foster the industry, but also employment. So I think, you know, if you look at our company, I mean, we've gone from basically less than 100 people to almost 4,000 people. If you include Bioepis, there's another 1,000, and we anticipate to grow to 10,000 within a couple of years. So it's creating a huge employment base. And it's been really supported by the government to make that happen. Right.
Okay. Well, turning to one of the more recent, I think, exciting developments in this pandemic. Back in December 2020, Moderna, the U.S. biotechnology firm pioneering in messenger RNA therapeutics and vaccine, they're headquartered in Cambridge, Mass.
Cambridge, Mass.
So they announced a supply agreement with the Korean government, South Korean government, of 40 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine, even though at the time that vaccine had not been approved by the Korean regulators. But things have moved beyond that. And so on May 22nd, Samsung Biologics and Moderna announced a manufacturing service and supply agreement in which Samsung Biologics would provide large-scale commercial fill-finish manufacturing for Moderna's COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. So that seems very exciting. Just taking a step back, what is fill-finish vaccine manufacturing process?
So the Korean government and the U.S. government, I think, have been very, very supportive in terms of making vaccines available. And so we are pleased to be Moderna's partner in Asia. We're the first company in Asia to basically do aseptic fill finish. And what that is we take drug substance vaccines that are produced either in Europe or in the United States that is shipped here in cold storage at minus 70 degrees. So many of the companies do not have the cold storage capability. So we have cold storage capability from minus 70 all the way to ambient temperature was 2 to 8 degrees. Of course, Moderna vials are actually stored at minus 20 degrees. So we get the drug substance, we thaw it, we formulate it, we put it into the vials in aseptically class A condition, which means there's no, it's highly sterile, of course. We do the testing We did the label and packaging, and we released. So the capabilities to enable to do that is very far and in between. Only a few companies in Europe, in Europe and the United States can do that. We're the only one in Asia that can do that at this point in time.
Right.
And that's because we have the cold storage capability, cold chain capability. We also have a regulatory track record with 20 plus approvals from various agencies like FDA, EMA, Japanese authorities as well as the quality systems. And of course, most importantly, we have the capability and the experience of the people to do that.
Right, right. So it's been said that getting a vaccine into the arms of people is not so much a matter of patents, but a matter of process. So you manage this complicated process very well.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I imagine you have supply chains that extend into Korea and even come from maybe the U.S. and Europe. For example, the glass vials, are these produced in Korea or do you get these shipped in
right
from
now,
elsewhere?
these are going to be drop shipped from our Moderna's vendors.
Okay,
they're actually
right.
in the United States, but
Right.
those will be initially drop shipped for us, so
Okay.
that the time to be able to fill it and to release it to the various countries that Moderna decides
Right.
will be actually very, very quick.
Right.
And we plan to do that starting in the third quarter of this year.
So you'll start filling vials full of vaccine in the third quarter of this year.
Yes, and it's critical we do that because everybody globally is in need of vaccines, and we understand, and I think our employees understand the criticality.
Yeah.
Each vial has 10 doses, so it can really help 10 people globally. So
Okay.
it's very,
That's
very
good.
important for us.
And your initial production of the Moderna vaccine, the market will be South Korea, or how do
we
you see
don't
this? You
decide
don't know
where
that.
those
Yeah.
are being sold.
Uh-huh.
We are asked to produce the vaccines in
And
vials,
and then it's Moderna's.
Moderna makes the decision.
Moderna makes the decision. I get it.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, certainly Korea needs a lot more vaccine.
Korea needs a lot more vaccine, but globally, everybody I
Everybody
think
does, yeah.
needs vaccines.
Yeah.
So it's a high mission for everybody at Samsung Biologics to
Yeah.
make that happen as
Yeah.
quickly as we can with the quality.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the U.S. has provided some vaccine to Korea out of the Moon Biden summit,
Yes.
enough to vaccinate people in the armed forces
Yeah.
here, I think. But there's a lot more people that need
There's
to
a
be
lot more
vaccinated.
people who need vaccines.
I hope the Biden administration is imaginative and can reallocate some of our excess supply because the demand for the vaccine has really dropped, vaccination rates in the U.S. So hopefully it'll be coming here and elsewhere too.
Yes.
But you'll be producing a lot too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to turn to so this issue of supplying enough vaccine for global needs. The WTO has done a patent waiver under the TRIPS and to try to get production out to emerging market countries. But in terms of expanding global supply, it seems to me, maybe I'm narrow-minded or naive, that these bilateral contractual relations with companies like yours can provide more vaccine sooner, higher quality, less risk in production than starting new hubs in other places in the emerging markets.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, vaccine is critical right now. So the more we can produce globally for patients in need, I think we can do whatever that needs to be. So making that available. But I think the constraints are raw material. Constraints are having the right cold storage system. Constraints are having the know-how and the people to do that. So while there's a lot of opportunities, I think, in terms of having other people make it, the challenge is going to be, do we have adequate raw materials, adequate quality systems, adequate cold storage systems to enable us to actually produce vaccines and make that available. So I think that's the challenge that all of us are trying to address very, very quickly as fast as we can.
Right. So the COVID pandemic has shed light on this mRNA vaccine, and I had never heard of this before. But looking out in the future, will there be other types of messenger RNA vaccines produced for other diseases? And is this part of Samsung's strategic vision?
Yeah.
To
So
participate?
mRNA vaccine, I think Moderna had been working on it for the last 10 years.
Right.
So I mean, it wasn't like they started and then within a year they produced vaccine. They've been
Right.
working on it for 10 years.
Right.
We do see that mRNA has opportunities in other areas. So I think, for example, Moderna is looking at therapeutics as well, and I think they're also looking at flu and many other things. So what we're trying to do is beyond, in terms of, we talked about the 3 dimensions, one being the platform technology. We're continuing to expand our platform technology. So in addition to our fill finish on the mRNA side, we're currently building out our drug substance so that we are actually building a facility in Plant 3 that'll enable mRNA vaccines to be produced. Furthermore, we're looking at a multimodal facility which will come online in 23 that will do cell therapy as well as AAV and other platform technology. So we're continuing to expand in that area to really serve our clients, but also serve ultimately patients who are in need.
Looking at another area, your financial performance, the intrinsic value of Samsung Biologics. Maybe you could tell us something about that. I noticed that in the first quarter, you had a very large increase in revenue, 26%, and you also, your operating profit went up about 19%. Maybe you could tell us something about your meteoric rise in market cap. But what were the drivers of this strong performance most recently, and then over the past several years as well?
Yeah. So I think what I would say is we're continuing to have extraordinary growth rates, and I think that's primarily driven by our people, really exceptional people that are doing a fantastic job for the company and the growth of the business.
Right.
Our exceptional performance, we actually reached $1 billion plus sales last year for the first time in 2020. We've been growing at a compounded annual growth rate of 30+%.
Right.
This year, from a financial guidance, we've said we'll grow in excess of 20% plus in terms of sales and operating income. We will continue to see that level of growth as we continue to expand our facilities, as we continue to expand platform, and ultimately as we think about geographic expansion as well. We went IPO in 2016. Market cap was less than 10 billion at that time. Our current market cap is 50 billion. So we've actually gone up 5x within that short period of time. We're actually number 6 on the Kospi exchange in terms of market cap. So a staggering performance and growth with exceptional people that made that happen. So a lot of kudos to my team and the folks that worked at Samsung Biologics.
Right. So you also have you have abundant cash reserves, you have little, if not no debt. You don't have a bond credit rating, right?
We currently do not have any bonds. Most of our cash flow needs are self-funded or bank credit in terms of line of credit, et cetera. But in terms of our stock ownership is actually 10% foreign stock exchange. Vast majority holders are Samsung Electronics and Samsung Trading Company. But in terms of the overall, we've continued to expand our market cap. Our operation is very robust. Cash flow needs in terms of our capital investment, et cetera, are self-funded to a large extent.
Right. Well, when I go back to the U.S., I'm going to call up my the guys who manage my investments to see if Samsung Biologics is in any of my diverse mutual funds.
Thank you.
I hope they are. I won't be able personally to increase that much more of the foreign participation. So back in my days at Moody's Investor Service, I was in Sovereign, but I would often work closely with the corporate analysts. And often I'd go with them in their meetings, with their rating meetings with senior management. And the question they would always wrap up to is, what keeps you up at night? What are the challenges as president that you face as president and CEO of Samsung Biologics?
Yeah. So I really actually sleep well at night because I don't really worry about it very much. And I think part of that is because we have great people that really help manage the business and lead the organization. I think the key challenge for us is taking the business to the next level in terms of growth. So we're building Plant 4. We're also looking to expand further because we've built out all of our facilities in this Campus 1, which is basically 100 acres. So we're looking to purchase additional land for Campus 2. We're also expanding on the platform side in terms of mRNA and multimodal and other modalities. We're also looking at geographic expansion. We've actually entered the United States with the CDMO office and capability in San Francisco, but we're continuing to expand that, and we want to be in Europe and additional geographies over time. So that's what I think what we're trying to accomplish, and I think the critical sort of the rate limiting factor to a large extent is having great people and hiring great people into the organization. And one of the things that we did talk about, I think, is overall our average age is 29 years old for the company. And so we've actually able to get a lot of great talent in Korea, create great opportunities and jobs, and then those folks will actually help take us to the next level in terms of growth and opportunities across the globe.
So my final question is, the Korea Society was established in 1957, 64 years ago, and its mission is to increase awareness, cooperation, and understanding between the peoples of Korea and America. One way we can try to promote cooperation is through these partnerships. I hope there is a role in the future for the Korea Society to help promote, this K-Bio, or the partnerships between Korea and the U.S. U.S. manufacturers, U.S. pharmaceutical companies. Do you have any comments there or advice for us? Or?
No, I think the Korea Society is doing a fantastic job of continuing to build collaboration and awareness and support sort of bilateral growth. I think this is an ongoing, the Korea and U.S. alliance has been strong for many, many years. I think the recent sort of the vaccine, BBC, I would say, which is the Biotech batteries and chips, are critically important for both countries and the economies. We're looking to continue to build on that. And I think Korea Society can have a huge impact in terms of supporting those kind of initiatives that help to build collaboration in terms of also the Asian hub or the BCC overall, in terms of taking us to the next level. Because it's really a great opportunity, not just for both countries, for the country itself, but to really help globally everybody around the world.
Well, Samsung Biologics certainly is a great story to tell, and I think you'll be helping everybody out as you build up your company here. So thank you so much for your time.
Great,
Chairman
thank you
Lee.
for making the time. Really appreciate it.
Good.
And thank you for visiting.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.